Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy says Russia has begun what he called the battle for the Donbas. After spending days regrouping, Russian troops now appear to be engaging in a full-scale ground offensive along a 500-kilometre front in Ukraine's east and south. After suffering setbacks around the capital, Kyiv, the Kremlin declared its main goal was the capture of the Donbas region in the east. But in his nightly address, President Zelenskyy vowed to defend the territory.
We can now state that Russian troops have begun the battle for the Donbas, for which they have been preparing for a long time. A significant part of the entire Russian army is now concentrated on this offensive. No matter how many Russian troops are driven there, we will fight. We will defend ourselves, and we will do it every day. We won't give up anything Ukrainian.
Meanwhile, the western city of Lviv has been hit by multiple Russian rocket attacks. Missiles destroyed buildings and killed at least 7 people, the first civilian death in the city, which is near the Polish border. In the south of the country, Ukrainian troops holding out in Mariupol's enormous Azovstal steel plant say they will fight to the end, as Russia claims it's nearing victory in the besieged port city.
Russian missiles raining down on Ukraine. Russia says it's aiming at military targets in a campaign to weaken Ukrainian defenses. But the strikes also kill civilians. In Lviv alone, at least 7. The owner of this service station found 4 of his employees dead in the ruins of his shop.
I was planning to go to work when my colleagues called. They told me that there had been an explosion and that there was a fire. The worst part, of course, are the victims. I jumped in my car and was here in 10 minutes, and I saw it with my own eyes.
While attacks in Lviv have been rare, in Mariupol, they've forever changed the face of the city. Ukraine says at least 21,000 people have been killed here.
Mariupol has undergone extremely heavy destruction as a result of the rocket, bomb, and artillery fire that Russia is conducting round the clock. But the Russian army has failed to seize Mariupol completely, all thanks to the courage of those units, both the Ukrainian armed forces and other military formations that are there.
Those holdouts are making what could be their last stand here in the vast Azovstal industrial zone. With them are civilians, including children, encircled and low on food. They know that if Mariupol falls, Russian forces tied up here will be free to move on to other targets, such as the town of Rubizhne, now on the front line and under constant shelling. This woman lives in a nearby village, or what's left of it. She describes what it's like being in no man's land.
We don't even know where the shelling comes from. We wait for it from there, thinking that the Ukrainian army will protect us, but then it comes from there. There's shelling from all directions.
Elsewhere in Ukraine's east, soldiers prepare to hold the line against whatever the Russian army throws at them.
Our motivation is our home, the motherland. We can't take a single step back. We can't retreat. That's the whole secret of our work.
And with Ukraine's president saying Russia's long-awaited offensive has begun, that work may have entered a deadly new phase.
Let's get the latest from DW correspondent Matthias Bullinger in the Ukrainian capital. Welcome, Matthias. What are you hearing about this Russian assault on the east?
Yeah, the Ukrainian authorities have established that this was the beginning of the assault. It's mainly coming from the north, from the town of Izium. That's one town that's in between Donbas and Kharkiv. And it looks like the aim would be to move south from there and then cut off the forces that are east of that. We don't know, of course, what is going to happen and how well the Ukrainian army is prepared, but what we do know is that they have expected this for a long time and that they have tried to prepare as well as possible for quite a few weeks now, and all this discussion about heavy weaponry that we've been hearing, the delivery of new weapons, all this was meant to fight back an assault on Donbas from the Russian side.
Right. And what of Mariupol? We've been following events there for weeks, and the Pentagon says it has seen a concentration of airstrikes and artillery there.
Yeah, we know that the last parts of the Ukrainian army that are still in the city are in this steelworks, this gigantic steelworks that was a symbol of the city, and they are staying there. There's a huge bunker underneath, a system of tunnels, and civilians are also hiding there. What we've been hearing, but it's unconfirmed, is that many of these civilians are the relatives of these soldiers because they are afraid that they might be a target for the Russian army as well. It seems that the army is still there in this very small part of town, and it's heavily bombed. We've seen pictures, but for the moment it's as it has been, a war of attrition, a very cruel war of attrition in Mariupol.
Right. And how likely is it that Ukrainian forces will be able to defend Mariupol and keep the Russians out?
Well, the only way to do that would be another offensive coming from another side, and thus opening a corridor, breaking the blockade of the city. We haven't seen any offensive in that direction. We haven't seen any preparations for that. So it seems that the Ukrainian army is not able to do that at the moment.
And civilians, of course, caught up in all this. How are they dealing with this increase in hostilities?
The Ukrainian authorities have called upon civilians to leave these areas in Donbas that are likely to be the theater of the next escalation. We have also seen that there were trains to bring out people. We don't know how many civilians are left there, but from what we've seen in the war before, what we've seen in Mariupol and north of Kiev, is that this is a war that spares no one, and that it can be extremely cruel on civilians as well, so most people would probably be well advised to follow this advice by the government.
Okay, thank you for that, Matthias Bullinger in Kiev. Well, Russia, shifting the focus of its offensive to the Donbas, has seen many people in other war-torn parts of Ukraine return to their homes, or what's left of them. DW correspondent Rebecca Ritters travelled to the city of Irpin, where residents have started to rebuild, despite the constant fear that the calm may not last.
One thing that strikes you when you enter Irpin is the silence. These once bustling streets now scorched and deserted. Then sometimes the silence is broken by the sound of people trying to put their lives back together.
Around 300 square meters of roof is missing above 4 of the apartments. There's nothing but the blue sky above.
Olga is the caretaker of these 82 flats, and she lives in one up the top.
My apartment is in this part of the building that was damaged by missiles.
She stayed right through the occupation to try to save them from Russian soldiers taking them over, but was helpless to stop the missiles.
For now, it is in this state. The house is uninhabitable until we rebuild it.
Next door to Olga, another group with a similar story. They tell me this wasn't the first time they've had to flee one of Putin's wars.
Many live here as a last resort, do you understand? Many of us are from Donbas. We came here from war, just to simply live, and war came here after us. We are peaceful people. We don't want anything bad, we just want to live. The most important thing is that it doesn't happen again. Putin could come back at any time, even tomorrow.
Their building was also badly damaged by rocket fire. One woman shows me where her flat used to be.
This was my bedroom, and there was a balcony behind it. And now there's no balcony there at all. My things were there, like a little oasis, and now it's gone.
Russian soldiers may have left Irpin, but this is a city that's been left in ruins. There isn't a building we can see that doesn't at least bear some scars of the war, and many are ruined beyond repair. And while the physical clean-up is underway, the emotional scars will take a lot longer to heal. For many who fled when the war broke out, they have little left to come back to. But for those who stayed behind, many will have an even bigger recovery to contend with.
If the war comes again, I will survive in any case. I will always survive, because I have a bear and he protects me.
I still get frightened by every loud noise. I don't know if it will ever go away, but for now, that's how I am.
The not-so-silent trauma that may live on in their lives forever.